I made this video on TikTok, but many people took it the wrong way, which makes sense because it's TikTok. But I want to do this title justice. I want to do this topic justice because I know that it will help a lot of people because learning this actually helped me to overcome not just social anxiety, but my anxiety in general. So what do I mean when I say that people with social anxiety are self-centered? Now, a lot of people took this topic the wrong way because when you hear self-centered, you will automatically associate with like the negative connotation. When people are called self-centered, usually it's meant to describe a person that's very vain, that is full of themselves, that thinks they're all that, they're self-centered. But when I use self-centered in this context, I'm not talking about vain people. I'm literally talking about self-centered people, people who center their self. It's people who think that, when they're walking down the street, people are hyper fixating on their insecurities or they're fixating on their personality. These are the type of people that believe that people are heavily criticizing their every movement, but they only think that way because they harshly critique their selves. When I say that you have to be self-centered in order to have social anxiety, I literally mean that you have to believe that your insecurities are at the focal point of everyone's perception. And no, this does not make you a bad person. This does not make you vain. This just means that you were taught, maybe from your parents or just how you were raised when you were younger, when you did something wrong, or someone saw your flaw, they catastrophized it. There's some people that grew up with family members or parental guardians or people that they trusted. Anytime they did one little mistake, their caregivers would make that one mistake seem larger than life, not in a way to help their children, not in a way to teach their children from right and wrong, but in a way to embarrass their children, in a way to make their children grow up to hate themselves. Now, some parents didn't purposely do it. Obviously, it is important to discipline your children, but there are some parents that only points out their children's flaws in order to embarrass them. And so these very children grow up and think that people are always hyper focusing on their flaws because their parents did that when they were younger to them. And then obviously these type of children grow up resenting their selves. Most people, actually, I would say everyone has as much good things about them as flaws. But when you grow up in an environment where all your family do is point your flaws, you're gonna just see yourself as this flawed, incompetent, terrible person, which is why you become self-centered, which is why you start to hyper obsess over your flaws. Not because by default you are just this insecure person, but you were taught to be. It's a coping mechanism. This might sound crazy, but I need you guys to understand that insecurity is a coping mechanism. If all your life people were pointing out your flaws, obviously your brain is going to learn to hyper focus on your flaws so that you wouldn't be in a position where someone would point it out. Insecurity is a coping mechanism. This is how our brain adapts to living in an overly critical environment, by overly criticizing our own self. I need you to understand that when you are extremely anxious, when you have this heightened social anxiety, it's not because everyone is looking at your insecurities. It's because you believe that everyone is watching you, but in reality, no one is. In reality, it's literally all in your head. When I compare my socially anxious, just miserable and insecure middle school slash high school self to my now, a little bit more emotionally mature, a little bit more secure in myself, adult self now. The main difference between my insecure self to my secure self now is that I don't center myself as the main focal point of other people's perceptions. When I'm walking down the street, maybe I'll feel a little anxious. I'll probably check and see, okay, does my clothes look fine as I'm walking down the street? But as I'm walking down the street, I'm not really concerned about how other people see me because I know that most people walking down the street aren't even making eye contact with me. They're in their own bubble. They have their own problems. They have their own little life going on in their head. They're not concerned about me. So this actually relieved a lot of my social anxiety and my anxiety in general, realizing that people don't care about me and that I literally don't matter and that I make up literally 0.000000001% of the population. That saved me from a lot of social anxiety because it made me realize that people don't care about me as much as I think they do. And that might seem a little weird. Like, how do you realizing that people don't care about you relieve you from your social anxiety? Doesn't that make you feel worse? Like when you want people to care about you? But actually, no, it makes me feel more relieved because it's showing myself that it doesn't matter how cringe I am, it doesn't matter, how weird I am. People have their own struggles. They don't really care about me. The ego, the identity that I believe I am, most people don't see that. If a random person sees me, they're not going to see me like how I see myself. They're going to see me based on their own experiences. Their own experiences, their own life, it's going to filter what they see of me. I don't have to worry about other people's perception of me because I fundamentally know that other people's perception of me isn't even me. It's based on their own life experiences. The way I see my friends is most likely not how they see themselves. There might be some overlaps and some commonalities between my friends' ego, that thing that they identify themselves to be, compared to how I see them, but how I see my friends is based on my experiences, the things I've went through. Because although you see with your eyes, you interpret with your mind and your past experiences. The way I see you isn't necessarily you, it's just an image that represents you that I've created in my mind. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about the term self-centered. Being self-centered is not a bad thing, right? Like I said, usually when we talk about self-centered, we think of like that negative connotation. Most people are self-centered. Self-centered meaning they think that everyone's watching them and everyone's judging them. Most people think that most people are judging them. But that doesn't mean they're a bad person. That just means that they were probably most likely raised in a household where everyone was judging them. And because they didn't take time to grow from that worldview and learn to have a more accurate perception of the world, they still hold on to that idea that everyone is judging them. I didn't realize this until recently, but your childhood really does play a big role in your perception of the world. And this is obvious, right? But I'm actually feeling it, feeling the effects of it. I'll give you a short story. When I was young, like I said, I was the black sheep of the family and I was always casted out. So I didn't realize that I had this worldview, but in my mind, I would think that naturally the world casted me out. Not because in every situation people casted me out and isolated, but because people isolated me when I was younger and I didn't have any major life experiences to transform that perception in my mind. As I got older, I carried that perception and I started to think that people in the world just was isolating me because I didn't have an accurate perception of how the world really works. I didn't realize that the average person isn't going to isolate you unless you do something that's worthy of being isolated. Now, obviously, this doesn't mean that there isn't mean people in the world that will just isolate you. But for the most part, I just assumed everyone was isolating me because of my childhood trauma. If you're watching this video, I need you to know that you are not as important as you think you are. And that might seem like the craziest thing to tell someone that is socially anxious, that is insecure, that has a very terrible sense of self. But hear me out, okay? The reason why learning this helped me is because it freed me, right? So if in your mind you think that everyone is watching you and everyone cares about you, that means that you're going to fixate so heavily on the way you act. You're going to fixate on small things like your mannerism, like the way you talk, like the way you dress, because you think you're so important. You think that everyone is watching you. But if you start to realize that, wait, I'm literally, like I said, 0.0.0.0.1% of this universe. I'm literally a speck of dust in this world. Everyone has their own problems. It may seem like everyone thinks I'm cringe and weird, but no one really cares. And even if they think I'm cringe and weird, why does it matter? I'm literally 0.0.0.0.0.1% of the universe. Then this will free you. This will make you not really care about what people think. Because you don't really matter. You don't matter. Well, no, you matter. You're good. You matter. But you're not the center of everyone's world. You're not the center of anyone's world. You'll feel more comfortable in your body and like interacting with people when you realize that life is not that serious. When I was younger, because like I grew up in a very, religious household, I had this identity that like I was a perfect child, this perfect child, and I should always be this perfect person, straight A's. I should always be kind. I should always be sweet. Because for some reason, this is what people assumed of me. Um, because I, for the most part, got straight A's and stuff, they just boxed me as like the nice girl. And so I did everything to try to upkeep this identity. But then I realized that, wait, this is so tedious, like, right? I'm not like a rude person. I'm not trying to be a rude person. I wasn't mean. I wasn't evil, but I'm not like this one person. I'm a multidimensional being, and I shouldn't be bounded to one label. The reason why it was so hard for me to want to break out this identity is because I cared so much about what people thought, because I thought that everyone was watching me and everyone was looking at me to be this example and all eyes was on me, because I was self-centered. Self-centered in not a negative way. I literally just centered my identity in the focal point of everyone's perception. But then I grew up and I realized that none of this really matters. Like, no one really cares about me. Like, I put myself in this pedestal because I thought everyone else was putting me on this pedestal. But in reality, no one really cares. Like, it's not that deep. Like, I shouldn't put myself on this high expectation. I'm literally just a random person. Life will reward you when you start to act as if no one is watching you. I had this problem when I was little. Like, I thought, not that God was watching me, but I thought like in every moment someone was watching me. Like, I had this like anxiety. Life will reward you when you literally act like no one is watching. And why is this, right? Because when you act like no one is watching, that right there, that energy that suddenly appears out of you is accurate to how the world really works. When you have social anxiety, right, the reason why it feels so chaotic is because you are operating in a reality that doesn't even exist, right? When you have social anxiety, it's because you think everyone's watching you, everyone's judging you, but that isn't real. That's in your mind. You're operating in a reality that isn't real, which is why you feel uncomfortable. When you act as if no one is watching you, you will feel more comfortable with yourself, because that reality is the most accurate, because no one is actually watching you and judging you the way you assume they are. And this doesn't mean people don't judge you, but it's never at the intensity as what you believe it is. The reason why fears feel so uncomfortable to have is because your fears are not real. They're not real. You're being burdened by something that doesn't exist. All those things in your mind telling you, oh, you shouldn't do this, oh, be afraid, like it doesn't exist. And that might sound very privileged coming from someone that like has YouTube and stuff and is talking to people, but like I've dealt with social anxiety, so I know how it feels. Like, I've experienced this. But you literally just have to get out your head. You have to start acting more as if no one is watching you, because they're not. They're literally not. When people say, oh, I have social anxiety because I'm not given a safe space for me to be, free, I could understand, I could relate that in most spaces, it might feel like uncomfortable to be yourself, but you have to understand that you can't wait to be provided a safe space in order to be your highest self, in order to be your most comfortable self. You have to give that safe space to yourself. You have to allow yourself to be comfortable before people allow you to be comfortable. In this world, there's like very evil people, and there's people that generally will judge you. But you have to understand that your mind is what catastrophizes this. The people that's judging you isn't the problem. It's your mind that's catastrophizing the people that's judging you. It's your mind that, after someone judged you, your mind will say, well, maybe I should give up. Maybe I should quit. You need to rise above your mind. Yes, there are some thoughts that appear in your mind that is helpful, but most of the thoughts that come in your mind are just rubbish. Like, it's just noise. It's just chaos. You have to learn to detach, decenter your thoughts. And you have to learn to live in the moment. Be here and be present. Stop caring about what people think. Life is as hard as you make it. If you believe that everyone is judging you and everyone is like talking about you, they care so much about what you're doing, guess what? Your reality is going to prove you right, because reality is not just what you see, it's what you think, it's what you believe. If you believe that everyone is judging you, you will find things throughout your day that reaffirms those beliefs. Your mind is very interesting, because if you think something so strongly, your mind will literally filter out everything that doesn't correlate with that belief and only shows you what you believe. So if you want to live a peaceful life, then stop believing that everyone is thinking about you and everyone's talking about you and everyone's judging you. You need to stop being self-centered. You have to decenter yourself from other people's lives, from other people's perception, because honestly, most people are not thinking about you. And even if they are, why does it matter? Instead of giving them all your energy, if you use that same energy in the careers you're doing or the hobbies you're doing, you will succeed and you will be better than them. I hope you enjoyed this video. This was really fun. If you like this video, then follow me on all my socials and I will see you next week. Bye.